Hello there, everybody. This is Alex from Hardcore Guides, bringing my guide for God of War 2 on Titan difficulty. Today we're doing part... Oh, crap. I did it again. I just had it, too. Part 8, Part 9? Yes, Part 8. Why do I keep... I don't know why I keep forgetting this. I think it's because I had this IGN level guide thing up here. I'm trying to remember the names of these levels. Anyway, this is Part 8. This is called The Ruins of the Forgotten. And this one's a bit of a longer one, and for those that are curious, you can find the urn here, because we're going to be going to get the Golden Fleece, and I will be getting the urn. I don't remember if I get all the urns or not, but anyway, starting off, I'm going to call these guys riders, because they essentially, you know, as you'll find out later, can control Cyclopses, they can call them in. And this might be a bit boring. You can, again, you know, you can play the game however you want. I'm not going to tell you not to. But for me personally, I just go for a safer option of just grabbing. And I know that's going to be a constant theme of God of War 2, but that just seems to be the one that ends up working the most. I think it takes about 4 grabs to fully kill off a rider. You can tell by the, you know, amount of combo that you get out of it, which is nice. Which is a pretty cool finisher. I actually like this one. This one's pretty fun. But yeah, these guys right now, they're not going to call any Cyclopses in, so you can, you know, take them out how you wish. But once we start getting to the Cyclops section, that's when you might want to take into more consideration of being a bit more patient with it and trying to, you know, get rid of the riders as fast as possible. Which kind of sounds like a contradictory sentence there, but that's not what I mean for it to be. Now, another thing you could do, as you saw what I did right there, was I used the... Oh gosh, what was it called again? Basically, the hold triangle move. I wish I remember the names of these things. Because, like, I know Cyclone, you know, is L1 square, and then I know, like... Plume of Prometheus is like square, square, triangle. Like, I know some of those moves. I know one was like, you know, the Hercules one. But after that, we're gonna have to deal with these Argonauts. Now, there's a couple ways you can deal with them, and I think they're called Argonauts. A couple ways of doing with them is triangle moves work pretty well, especially like the slam move. It does quite a bit of damage, and of course, you know, the final square move also does quite a bit of damage too. The thing is, the trick with these guys is that whenever they get into the circle prompt, you want to kill them as fast as possible, because if you don't, they'll pretty much just get a bit of an extra health boost again. Like, they'll become invincible for just a little bit, so you want to get rid of them as fast as possible. There's a couple ways you can take them out. You can, you know, of course, throw them into the Urael section here. If you get stuck into that, you might end up dying, so try not to walk in there and try to bait them into yourself. If you can knock them into it, great. Now, the other way of taking them out, besides throwing them into the pond, of course, that you saw, another way of taking them out is actually using the Barbarian Hammer. It's not my go-to all the time. It depends on the situation. But in some instances from, like, you know, playthroughs like long ago, I would use the Barbarian Hammer to kind of just get a bit of damage on them. Mostly just like the square attacks. I don't really use the triangle attacks just because, you know, of the amount of, like, end lag and recovery frames that it kind of has on it, so I try not to. It does a bit of damage, yes, but I would rather have the ability to block, you know, when I can. So that's kind of why I don't usually use the hammer. If you use the hammer, you know, more power to you, of course, but I'm more of a blades type guy. I'm pretty old-fashioned with that. So this is going to be the first of the Cyclopses that I think we either A, get to meet, or B, get to get an eyeball from. So, yeah, you think, you know, being the God of War 2 guide guy, you think I would know that. If I remember correctly, I think this is the first time we meet this particular Cyclops. And, yeah, as you saw, like I said, you pretty much do, like, 4 grabs on a rider and you knock them down. If the rider is on top of a Cyclops, then, of course, just... Actually, no, this is not the first time we saw one. We saw one earlier. What am I talking about? It's not the first time we saw them. This is the first time we get an eyeball from them. Which, that's just an extra thing you can do. You can do that in arena mode for those that are curious. If you want to get all 20 eyeballs, you don't have to do like an entire playthrough or have to have these guys essentially regenerate, quote-unquote. Basically get called back because more riders are going to show up. They're going to infinitely call them if you don't take out the riders. If you want to deal with that, there is another way to deal with the eyeballs, is you can go to the arena and you can get them from there. But I don't think you're supposed to leave until you get all 20, if I remember correctly. So, just pro tip for something outside of, like, actual regular God of War 2 runs. So, in case anybody was wondering. So, yeah, after you take out the first Cyclops, you're going to start spawning in some more Riders. And then I do what I do best, where I just essentially grab. Again, it may be boring, but for me personally, it's relatively efficient. You know, it gets the job done, and that's what I'm looking for practically. The Riders, fortunately, don't have a ton of health. But even then, still, I would rather just not deal with them, because the instant that one starts calling in one is a problem. Now, you'll see in just a few seconds, I think it... No, okay, never mind. I guess it just happened. The Rider that I grabbed, I think was the Rider that was the one that was calling up the Cyclops, because I think the other one wasn't. So, what ended up happening, though, is that was not just skill. That wasn't me, you know, knowledge checking the game or anything like that. No, that was essentially me getting lucky and being fortunate enough to actually grab the Rider that was actually calling in the Cyclops, thus ending, you know, the spawn of the second one. If you want more orbs, that's fine too. Cyclopses are not that difficult. Tips for them, I mean, I gave them in like a couple videos ago, but just to kind of reiterate, one of the tips that I usually give for that is when they do a slam or when they taunt, that's when you want to kind of like go for your attacks, especially something that's like a combo finisher, whether it be a plume or, you know, like a triangle move out of like a final square combo, or just the final square hit itself, or, you know, whatever the case. Get some, you know, nice bit of damage on them, or just do some combo, because like typically if you don't do a finisher, like finishers usually knock them out of their taunt. I call it a taunt, but that's not necessarily what it is, I don't think. But that's just what I kind of named it. When they're doing that, you know, that roar, when they're screaming or whatever, you can do a few bit of combo hits on them and stuff, and then, you know, if you do a finisher, whether it be square, square, triangle, or whatever, then you could potentially knock them out of it, and then they'll be back to being pissed. So, I don't remember what these things are called. I'm just going to call them Fireflies for now. These little buggers, they don't do a ton of damage, but they're just irritating. And as you saw in the beginning, I grabbed one, you know, from the air and threw him down, and I pretty much just try to throw them at the Wraiths. And that's kind of essentially the beginning part of what I'm trying to do, but right now I'm stuck in a corner and I'm having an issue with having to deal with them. So that's why I'm not being too confident with my skills right here, is because I'm stuck in a corner, I'm having trouble. But yeah, try to go for the Fireflies and blow them up as fast as possible. Try to make them aimed toward the other enemies rather than themselves. That way you can get some nice hits off. I think there's only 2 of these guys that spawn, and if you don't want to fight them, you don't have to. But if you want the orbs, then I would suggest going for them. But if you really don't want to do it and you're having a lot of trouble fighting them, I would suggest just not bothering with them. And of course, you know, just like with any other fight with the Wraiths, I always just kind of preemptively block as much as I can. Try not to do the jumping circle attack where you follow up with them, unless it's like just a singular one by itself. Mainly because if you come back down from that back attack, as I call it, because you pretty much just grab them and you break their spine practically. That's, I think, what he's trying to do. After you do that back attack, sometimes what will happen is you can get caught up inside of another attack from one of the enemies, and that could screw you over too. So that's something you kind of want to keep in mind, especially with God of War 2. God of War 2 has a lot of those situations where you kind of want to be careful of what you're doing in terms of combo stuff, or just in terms of, you know, what enemies you're grabbing or doing to them in general, because sometimes, especially with Wraiths, is you'll come back down and you might accidentally get hit or whatever, and well, obviously that's not good, but you get what I mean. So deal with these guys, nothing too bad. They're the non-armored ones. You can easily grab them. You don't have to fight them if you don't want. You can just throw them into the pond or whatever. It don't matter. The next fight coming up is actually a pretty fun fight. These are some of the enemies I actually like fighting a lot, just because of, I don't know why, they look cool because of the sword, I guess, and what you can do to them. So the first guy, and they also have a pretty cool finisher too. I like that one a lot. The first guy, you know, these 2 come down. That guy in the middle, you want to stay near the pillar. You don't want to come too far out in the open, so you don't want to accidentally get shot by his fireballs up here. That's kind of what you want to avoid. Just stay in the corners and try to hide from them. But yeah, I just grab most of them, and then whenever they're in the air, I press circle again to do the slam attack. So these ones are a bit more interesting than my normal grabs, and they don't take too much to kill, luckily, which is very nice. And in terms of combo potential, yeah, they're pretty fun to beat up just in that way too, because they never really provide too much of a challenge. Now that health chest right there, I would suggest if you're coming back for the urn, maybe leave it. If you don't have health, grab it. If you have health, just leave it for now, because we will be coming back to this section later and we will have to fight enemies again. We will be fighting a rock monster, which luckily is only just the one that we pretty much fight on the path back to the urn. So yeah, for those that are curious, right now if you want advice on the urn, like where to go and get that one, once we get to the section which is after the rock monster, and there's going to be a bunch of, Gorgon stairs going on this conveyor belt thing, you're going to want to come back with the Golden Fleece, which means we're going to have to fight Cerberus. Or Kerberos. We're going to have to fight a Cerberus, whichever way you want to pronounce it. I'm not a stickler, so don't worry. Whenever you fight him, you get the Golden Fleece, you come back, and then you block with the fleece on that conveyor belt, and then you pretty much just press the button that corresponds with what you need to do, and there you go. Also, I don't know what I was thinking. I kind of forgot how to do this puzzle for like a minute, and I was like, wait a minute. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to shoot that. So it's been years since I played God of War 2 at this point in time, and it really does kind of show. But luckily for me, even though it's been years since I've actually, traversed the minefield that is God of War 2, I came back relatively fine. Alright. That's enough chitter-chatter, because I need to give some guide advice. This is one of those moments where, like, every guide kind of has, where I essentially have that one part of the guide that I actually consider relatively professional / good advice. So, this section here is relatively annoying to deal with, because you're going to have these guys that they mostly just spawn almost infinitely. Now, a couple of things. The first bit of advice, the main bit of advice, is the hammer. Use the triple square combo to knock off the enemies. And every time that enemy spawns and he's about to go to attack you, that's when you want to let go of the lever. You don't want to let go like when they spawn. You want to let go of the lever when they're relatively getting close to you. Well, pretty much whenever you feel, safe enough to do it. Try to get both at once. If you can't, that's fine. Then just go for one. You got plenty of time. And, go for a finisher if you really wanted. But that just kind of wastes a bit more time. That's the thing with this section in general, is just you really have to time your stuff here. Now, the only thing that matters is that third swing. That's pretty much what you want to get out of it. You want to get that third swing, because that's the one that's going to, of course, as you see, knock them off the platform that we're on. And do be careful about jumping too, because you could eventually die and fall in the water. The other thing you could do, if you really wanted to, because there is a magic chest coming up, but there is going to be a rock monster, so it's kind of like a pick your poison situation. Do you want to use magic now, or do you want to use it later? Something you could do is use the Kronos' Rage to kind of just keep them in a stun while you're continuously doing this. However, I prefer using the Barbarian Hammer just because it makes this section just a tad bit easier, and I feel like I have more control over it, if that makes any sense. Because, like, the Kronos' Rage, like, it doesn't last long enough, even at this point in time. Even if you were to upgrade it to, like, level 2 or whatever, I don't feel like it lasts long enough to really keep them off your tail. If you want to go for it, but I just go for Barbarian Hammer. And I try to, like, set it up to where I start winding it up sometimes, before the enemies spawn. At least the second enemy. The first one, you just want to, wait for him to get close to you with a lever. But the second one is the one that you could probably wind up for. Unless you want to wind up for the first one. It don't matter. As long as you, get past this section, then all is well in the world. I got really lucky right there. I almost clipped out and died. Now, of course, another thing, too, is they give you Rage Orbs while you're doing that section. So if you wanted to, you could use Rage of the Titans, but I never really do, personally. Just, I don't know. I like to kind of keep it mainly for, like, this fight and a few others that come up. But now that I know what's coming up ahead, maybe I should have been smarter about this, but I do remember, of course, the rock monster being here. I just, I don't remember if I used Rage on this section. That's what I'm trying to say. So, this is, I think, the beginning, the very first rock monster fight we ever have to be introduced to. The trick with him throwing a rock is you want to dodge at like close to the last second, because if you dodge before that, he'll pretty much home in on you and attack you. You'll see that when we get to the Atlas section. And something that I do that I do to Cyclops as well is I try to keep my distance and essentially go for like long range attacks. The attack that you want him to be doing is that spin attack, because while he's doing that spin attack, just wind up for a triple triangle attack. If you don't have triple triangle, then of course go for a full square combo or whatever. While he's doing the rock spin, I think you can attack his arms and you can do damage, as you saw right there. So, do that if you feel safe and comfortable with doing that. If not, try to go for long range attacks. Use magic if you want, because there's a magic chest nearby that should refill us on full magic, I believe. And with that, yeah, that's the first rock monster. The second one, I think the second one appears in Atlas. I could be wrong. But either way, regardless if I'm wrong or not, the next rock monster fight is going to be a bit more tougher. No, wait. That's not the Atlas one. There's like 3 of them, I think. There's like 3 or 4 rock guys. They're pretty funny to me. I actually like them. Either way, the one in the Atlas one is the one that's going to give me trouble. So, the one that has the harpies around them, not really. But yeah, this part right here, I do the same thing I do in God of War 1, where essentially I go for a square kick and then I go for a grab. That's pretty much what I'm aiming for. And if they grab me, then great. That saves me the trouble and I get a free, +5 brutal kill, I guess. So why the hell not? And luckily for us, at least in this game, the devs at Santa Monica decided to add the ability of, pressing X to dash forward and to climb faster. So thank goodness they added that. And also thank goodness Dante's Inferno also took that to note as well. Well, speaking of Dante's Inferno, I haven't played that in a hot minute. I would maybe one day I would like to do a guide of it, but last time I played that game, it gave me some trouble. I got to the final boss fight, but this was like years ago. This is when I was like a teen. It gave me like a lot of troubles back then when I was playing it. Which, by the way, I love Dante's. Well, I don't play it much anymore, but I remember I really liked it when it came out. I pre-ordered that son of a bitch. I also pre-ordered Bioshock 2 alongside it, and I remember, I think Dante came out like a February of 2010 or something like that. And it was a pretty cool game, because I was a pretty big God of War fan at the time, and I was like, ooh, I want to see God of War again. Which is funny, because a lot of people have this issue where if a game is too much like another game, they typically kind of just sell it off, or not sell it off. They kind of just see it as not as good, It's like, oh, this game's like Call of Duty, so well, if you don't like Call of Duty at that point, then you probably won't like it, but you get what I'm saying. If a game is like God of War, or in this case, God of War is like Devil May Cry, which at the time I didn't really know about Devil May Cry. I didn't play a lot of Devil May Cry at this point. I think I started getting into Devil May Cry. Well, my first Devil May Cry, as sad as it sounds, was DMC4. And I like that one. I actually beat that one on Dante Must Die. That's the only one. Besides the reboot, of course. So, yeah, I'm not the best at everything. Just saying. I'm not always the best at every hard mode, But yeah, just fun little story. DMC4 was the first one I got into. And then after, I knew of DMC. I just didn't get into it until after that. And I was like, oh man, now I really want to play 1. I really want to play 3 and all this. And Spider-House, too. Spider-House was coming around at that time. Which, again, I didn't know about the older games. It's the same case with Ninja Gaiden. I know I'm a loser. It's the same case with Ninja Gaiden where I didn't know about the original games. I just knew about Sigma and stuff. And I was like, well, at the time, because, I was a God of War guy. Sorry. At the time, since I was a God of War head, I was really invested in getting anything that was God of War related. And Devil May Cry, unfortunately, at the time didn't scratch that itch, but luckily I became a DMC fan later, after. I didn't mind DMC4, but I was upset because I didn't have trophies because I was a dumb kid. And, yeah, I didn't realize that DMC4 was actually pretty good. I know quite a lot of people seem to kind of write off DMC4 as, but I liked it. I still like it. I still like Nero, He's definitely one of my favorites. For sure. You could say it's because of a bias, mainly because, well, that was my first DMC I played, but even then. But yeah, regardless of God of War being, you know, essentially Devil May Cry, games did eventually start coming out that started acting more like God of War, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, Gorgons, we can't do much to them right now, but the next section coming up, of course, we can. And the thing that I always recommend doing is either knocking them in the air themselves, or at the very least, knocking them back with like a, you know, the final square hit. Which, also another thing that I keep noticing is like when they're going for that stone, that Medusa gaze shot on me, they seem to miss it quite often. So I don't know what's up with that. I don't know what happened to the Medusas. I don't know what happened to the Gorgons in this game, but they seem to be not as brutal as they used to be, which is very fortunate for me because, well, I don't like fighting Gorgons very often. Wait, was that a clean cut? Was I cut it? Sorry, I cut out the cutscene, and I don't. Oh, I'm fainting. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I know I cut out the cutscene, but that must have been a hell of a damn good cut because I didn't even notice it. Shit. Okay. So anyway, yeah, puzzle. You grab the guy, you throw him into the conveyor, and then he dies. So next up is the Cerberus fight, and this fight is one of the more annoying fights. So there's a trick with the fire ability. Well, first of all, I use rage just to get some damage in, for those that are curious. If you have full rage bar, that's going to help out a lot. So the trick with the fire is you can block the entire thing. However, it stops actually doing hits, if you catch my drift. So I'll try to like point it out when I can. When he's doing those fireball shots, try to take some pop shots on him as much as you possibly can. You'll know when he's going for the fireball when he starts to like kind of like, you know, bend back and like wind up like right now. When he starts to wind up like that, that's a good opportunity to go in and get some hits. But when he's doing that fire attack, like the regular, like, you know, the stream fire, like right here, you see when the screen shakes 3 times? When that third time the screen shakes, you can let go of your block and you can go for an attack. So for those that are curious, you can, for the most part, block almost every single attack, I think, except for the fireballs. And whenever he's doing fireballs, that's when you want to get in close and go for some hits. And if you're like me and you have level 3 blades at this point, you can go for the triangle, square attack and go for that square finisher. If not, then just do some pop shots, like just normal shots. Try not to waste any magic. You can if you want, because the Gorgons are going to show up later anyway. So if you want to use magic now, you could. I always try to conserve it as much as I can. I'm very, very highly conservative of my magic for some reason in God of War 2. It's probably because like you don't get much magic from chest anymore. That's probably why I'm so highly conservative about using it. But yeah, this is just a simple one and go type pattern. Once you figure it out, it's not incredibly bad. And this is the only time we ever had to fight this particular Cerberus. So luckily for us, this is just one of its kind. We will be fighting more Cerberus later, and you know, of course, I'll be going into detail about how to deal with them. But for now, just be patient, do some pop shots. Okay, I guess it might be 3 to 4 times. But yeah, I just take some pop shots, and luckily you only need to get him down to like 2 different cutscenes. Because like, you know, he's pretty much halfway done when he eats the guy's, you know, the entire body, or eats the rest of the arm, or whatever it was. Yeah, I know. I didn't explain it the best I could, but essentially, you know, block when he's doing the stream of fire, and then after the screen's done shaking the 3 or 4 times, you can let go of block and do some pop shots. And then whenever he's winding up and launching fireballs, you want to go in toward him and then hit him that way. Now with Gorgons, this is relatively straightforward. Now that we have the fleece, you're just going to want to block at any point in time during their gaze. And then go for like a nice, good, heavy hitting combo at the very least. You know, if you're using Barbarian or Spear or whatever, then, you know, whatever combos suit you best, I would recommend going for, of course. And yeah, I can't believe I forgot about this cog, this gear or whatever right here. I forgot about this Gorgon. I remember there's one, I'm like, where the hell was it? I thought it was like near the conveyor belt, but yeah, I forgot that was actually on the opposite side of that too, so. Alright, that clears out that section, and now we get to finally go into the temple, and we get to use, of course, you know, the gaze back. But before we go into the actual Temple of Urael itself, we are going to backtrack to the Medusa Urn, I think it's called. It's either Medusa or Urael, I don't remember. Also, maybe this is just a me thing, but you see those squares on those tiles? I used to just, for some strange reason, jump on top of those squares just because I thought they'd... Not that I thought they'd be a button, but just because like, they look like one, I'm like, oh, haha. And my brain kind of was like, weird. I don't know. I do weird things, especially when I was younger. I just, you know, I play games in a very weird way. So, basically think of like hopscotch, I guess, where I'm just like jumping from square to square. But yeah, this next section might be a tad bit boring because, again, we are just mostly backtracking. I will fast forward a certain section of it, mainly because that particular section, you're just going through the wind-up levers again, the ones where you have to, like, you know, turn the things around. But for those that didn't know about this, hopefully this helps to find the urn. And, yeah, of course, Kratos just gives up halfway. That's just how it is. I still find it funny. I was watching one of my older Let's Plays that I did of God of War 2, and I don't remember which video it was. I don't remember at all. I'd have to go find it. And I got to a part where, oh, it's like it's way later on actually. It's after you get the wings. It's way later. I'm lifting up a door, and I'm not mashing nearly as hard as I should be. And then Kratos lets go of the door, and I say something along the lines of, like, you know, I'm like, God damn it, Kratos, like, you can kill gods, but you can't, you know, let the goddamn door, or something like that. So I thought that was kind of funny. Usually I don't find myself very funny, but there's times where I go back to, like, an older Let's Play, and then I'm like, oh, I said that, that's funny. Just in case, for those that are wondering what my Let's Play channel is, it's, of course, you know, TurdMonkey1497. You can search it, or you can go to my Hardcorean channel, and you can find it there. Also, I left it at death because I thought it'd be funny. I'm like, yeah, I failed platforming. Of all things that I would end up dying to in God of War 2, would be platforming. So, I left it in as like a fun little Easter egg for those that want to watch ahead of time. Well, that wasn't the actual intention, but I guess you can consider it like an Easter egg. So, there's that. But yeah, enemies do actually spawn in these sections when you do go back. So, do keep that in mind. That's kind of why I said, you know, if you wanted to, you can keep that chest just in the off chance that maybe you might need it. But these guys are relatively simple. I think I eventually just... Okay, maybe I don't. I thought I was going to give up on the whole grab thing and just go for an actual regular combo on him, but I guess I don't. Sorry. But yeah. Just backtracking. Gonna fast forward this because it's just super boring if I didn't. You're gonna hear my computer fan going off. That's just how that is. I need to dust that sumbitch, actually. That might actually help if I did that. But yeah, if you do hear it, I do apologize. It's how my old computer seems to be. But yeah, this next area, of course, what we're gonna be doing is we're just gonna be blocking while the gaze is going off, and then I think it's the middle door that might have one, that might have the urn. And again, I do want to reiterate and say that I'm not sure if I did get all the urns. I don't remember. I don't remember how many there were, though. I know there's Prometheus. Urn of the Gorgons, that's what it was. I know there's Zeus in the beginning. There's also Gorgons. There's, I think, Athena, Prometheus. Oh, man, it's been a while. I think, like I said, I think I get most of them. I don't know. If I miss most of them, then I apologize. I mean, there's other guys out there, too, for, like, that specific stuff, for those that are curious. I do, however, get all the 3 Omega chests. I think that's what they're called. I think they're called Omega chest, where you pretty much get a free health upgrade, a free magic upgrade, and then you also get a huge amount of red orbs. I'm taking my time running through that section because I was worried that that was the part where you fall off when you're going to the save point, but that's not the one. So anyway, that's for the episode. I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everybody.